Ethan Carter stepped out of the taxi 3 blocks from Pinnacle Innovation's Chicago branch, adjusting his thrift store glasses. The morning breeze ruffled his deliberately unkempt hair as he straightened his coffee-stained shirt. "Are you sure this is where you want me to drop you, sir?" the driver asked, eyeing Ethan's shabby appearance with confusion. Gone was the tailored Armani suit that usually graced business magazine covers. Today, Ethan was unrecognizable. "Positive," he replied, slipping into character. For the next 2 weeks, he wouldn't be Ethan Carter, the 42-year-old visionary CEO who transformed a struggling tech company into an industry giant. Instead, he would be Eric Collins, a 45-year-old career shifter starting as an intern after being downsized from retail management. The plan had formed 3 months ago after exit interviews from the Chicago branch revealed an alarming trend: talented employees were leaving, citing management issues and a toxic work environment without specifics. HR investigations yielded vague complaints that evaporated once formal questioning began. "People are scared," his chief of staff, Melissa, had observed. "Something's rotten in Chicago, and nobody's talking." The Chicago branch was led by Jason Phillips, a manager whose quarterly numbers were consistently impressive on paper. He was a star, driving innovation, cutting costs, and delivering results. Yet, the human cost remained unknown. As Ethan entered the building, he noticed the tension in the air. Employees whispered and exchanged anxious glances. Inside the orientation room, a cheerful woman introduced herself as Denise from HR. "You must be our new intern," she said, her eyes lingering on Ethan for a moment longer than the others. Just then, the door swung open with enough force to send papers flying from Denise's hands. "Is this it? I thought I said we needed 6 interns this quarter." Jason Phillips strode in, exuding an air of authority. He was younger than Ethan expected, in his mid-30s, polished and flashy in an expensive suit. "Most people have their careers figured out before their hair starts graying," he sneered, eyeing Ethan. "What's your story, pal?" Ethan blinked nervously. "I'm transitioning careers. My name's Eric Collins." "I didn't ask for your life story, Eric," Jason cut him off, smirking. "By the end of this internship, most of you probably won't make the cut." For the next hour, Jason outlined the program, directing thinly veiled insults at Ethan, who absorbed them all, mentally documenting every jab. The real Ethan wanted to stand up and put this pompous middle manager in his place, but Eric merely smiled weakly and took notes. After orientation, the young interns were assigned to technical teams, while Ethan found himself relegated to administrative support. "You'll be assisting Sarah Chen," Jason explained, leading Ethan down a corridor. "She handles various administrative functions." They arrived at a small desk where a young woman was juggling phone calls and organizing files. "Welcome to Pinnacle, Eric," she said with a warm smile that didn't reach her eyes. As the days passed, Ethan realized the Chicago branch was suffering not just from bad management but from fear. Conversations hushed when Jason walked by, and every employee seemed perpetually tense. By lunchtime on his 3rd day, Ethan had already been sent on 3 coffee runs and had Jason loudly correct his filing system in front of the entire office. "Do they not teach alphabetical order in dinosaur school?" Jason bellowed, scattering files across the floor. Ethan felt the eyes of his colleagues on him, some with pity, others relieved not to be the target. While sitting alone in the break room with a sad sandwich, Ethan faced a moment of truth. He had come expecting management problems, but he found a bully with unchecked power terrorizing an entire office while maintaining stellar metrics. He fought the urge to reveal himself and end Jason's reign immediately. He needed to understand how deep the rot went. Ethan decided to become exactly what Jason expected, an incompetent, somewhat pathetic older intern. This cover would allow him to observe, document, and ultimately bring justice to the Chicago team. Little did Jason know, his career was now on a countdown with each condescending remark. By his 3rd day, Ethan had settled into a routine: arrive early, prepare Jason's coffee, deliberately make minor mistakes, and document the fallout. That morning, he accidentally spilled a few drops of coffee on Jason's desk, a calculated move. "Are you kidding me?" Jason exploded. "This is Italian silk. Do you have any idea how much this costs?" Ethan fumbled with napkins, apologizing profusely, the nearby cubicles falling silent. "Just stop," Jason snapped. You'll make it worse. God, they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with interns these days. As Jason walked away, Ethan noticed several employees watching, some sympathetic, others relieved. The supply closet was dusty and cramped, clearly neglected for months. As Ethan sorted through expired toner cartridges, Sarah slipped in, closing the door behind her. I wanted to check if you're okay, she said quietly. Jason's usually awful, but he seems to have a special vendetta against you. Ethan smiled genuinely. I'm tougher than I look, but thanks for the backup. Their conversation was cut short when Jason barged in, smirking. Well, socializing on company time, huh? Eric, there's a department meeting in 10 minutes. Try not to embarrass yourself. The conference room was packed when Ethan arrived. The only available seat was directly across from Jason, who looked pleased. As Jason began discussing an important client proposal, he suddenly called on Ethan. Eric, why don't you tell us what strategy you'd recommend for handling Henderson's concerns? All eyes turned to Ethan. He knew exactly what they needed, but Eric wouldn't know that. I suppose we could offer them a phased approach, he began hesitantly. Jason's smile was predatory. A phased approach? Fascinating, he said, turning to the room. Our intern thinks we should drag out their implementation, telling them we can't meet their needs. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Ethan felt genuine anger rise within him. The real Ethan wanted to remind Jason that this was exactly what Henderson had requested, but Eric simply looked down and mumbled, sorry, still learning. Jason continued his tirade, occasionally glancing at Ethan to ensure his barbs landed. After the meeting, a young marketing analyst named Diego approached Ethan. Hey man, don't take it personally. Phillips does that to everyone new. He made an intern cry during a client call last month. Why does everyone put up with it? Ethan asked. Job market's tight, Diego shrugged. Phillips has connections. He delivers results, so corporate leaves him alone. Later that afternoon, Jason found Ethan making copies. I need these sorted and labeled before 5, he barked, dropping a thick stack of papers on the counter. They're the quarterly performance reviews, confidential, so try not to leave them in the bathroom like you did yesterday. Ethan hadn't misplaced anything, but he nodded and took care of it. As he delivered the sorted reviews, Jason called him back. I'm putting together a training presentation on professional etiquette. I want you to be my visual aid. Ethan felt a chill. Jason intended to publicly mock him, turning his supposed failures into entertainment. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, Ethan said quietly. Comfort isn't a priority for interns, Jason snapped. Being useful is. The next morning, the conference room buzzed with anticipation. Employees had heard about Jason's special training session, drawing a larger crowd than usual. Ethan stood awkwardly at the front beside Jason, who was arranging note cards with glee. Welcome to our special session on professional etiquette, Jason began, orchestrating a humiliating spectacle. For 20 minutes, he had Ethan reenact his previous mistakes, exaggerating each failure for the audience's amusement. As the cruelty escalated, Ethan felt the weight of humiliation pressing down on him. Yet, he remained silent, knowing that this was part of his plan. Then, Jason produced a large cardboard sign reading "Intern of Shame" and commanded Ethan to wear it. Ethan hesitated but ultimately took the sign. Just as he was about to hang it around his neck, he found his voice. No. The room fell silent. Jason's smirk faltered. What did you just say? I said no. This isn't training, it's harassment. Jason stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're an intern with zero prospects. I'm the manager who decides your future. My future doesn't depend on tolerating abuse, Ethan replied, feeling his authority seep into his voice. At that moment, Sarah stood up. This isn't leadership, it's bullying. Fine, you're both fired. Jason shouted, but the tide had turned. Employees began to stand in solidarity with Ethan and Sarah, voicing their own experiences. Jason's bravado crumbled as he realized he was losing control. Ethan seized the moment, asserting, what you call management is really a culture of fear. As the employees rallied around Ethan, Jason's face turned pale. He stormed out, vowing to call security, but it was too late. The truth was out, and his reign of terror was over. 3 weeks later, Ethan stood in the same conference room, now filled with laughter and open conversations. He had implemented new policies to foster a positive work environment, promoting employees who had shown integrity under pressure. Today, he announced the termination of Jason Phillips, emphasizing the importance of collaboration and respect. As he concluded, Ethan looked at Sarah. "You showed true leadership during this transition," he said, promoting her to a director position. The room erupted in applause, signaling a new beginning. Ethan realized his undercover mission had not only exposed a toxic manager but had also inspired a culture of dignity and respect at Pinnacle Innovations. He left that day, knowing the company would thrive under the principles he had fought to uphold.